Hi, Heidi. It's JoAnn. How you doing?
Great. How
Good,
are
good.
you?
Well, welcome to Beyond the Book. I'm your host, JoAnn Dickinson, and I'm so excited to speak with our guest today, award-winning self-published author Heidi Brooks. She is the talent behind her children's books, my favorite, Missy Moo and the Great Fart Mishap. I love that. And Noodles, Noodles Everywhere, Gator Gray Getaway. I love that one. I looked at that today. Adventure of Bronx. I would like to hear more about that. We're talking about what inspired you and your journey, and how did you get into being an author, Heidi? Give us a little bit of back.
Well, I think I always wanted to write a book about Bronxy. We call him Bronxy. He is now 6 years old and he has Down syndrome. I also have a nephew with Down syndrome who is 12, and I had a cousin with Down syndrome. So it's very rare that it's genetic, but in our case it is. It's called translocation. It's pretty cool. We are pretty blessed. We always say we are the
I
lucky
love
few,
that.
and it's been so fun. He is sometimes salty. He's a crack up. He has great dance moves. He's a lot of fun. He's the love of my life. And I thought, okay, a great way to introduce this to parents who have a child. They just are finding out that their child has Down syndrome. They're a little bit afraid. They're a little bit nervous. They don't know what to anticipate, because sometimes it comes with health issues. And luckily, our Bronxy he had a couple of holes in his heart when he was first born, but it healed immediately. He is very healthy. My nephew had to have open heart surgery when he was a year old. But, typically they will come with some health issues. But like I said, Bronxy's very healthy. And I thought, I've got to come up with some way to talk to parents about this and grandparents and tell them, hey, it's okay. This is actually not a bad thing. This is awesome. These kids are wonderful. A typical child, they like to do all the things a typical child does. They have all the same interests and loves, and they are a lot of fun. They really are. And I wanted people to see that. And I thought, what a great way to do that, you know, uh, via a children's book. And my dad was a school teacher for over 30 years. And he developed at that time one of the best reading programs in the state. He taught us this great love of reading. He used to read to us when we were young. And I love children's books. I have been obsessed with children's books. So that's what I did. And I was in my 50s and I thought, nope, it's go time. Well, it was actually within a year. It was last October that we released The Adventures of Bronx. We wanted it out prior to or during Down Syndrome Awareness Month, which is October.
That's wonderful. I love that. I love that whole story. And I have to quit using I love, because that is my biggest expression of, so often we think of that as a negative, having a child with Down syndrome. But I think it's just about learning more about it. I don't know that much about it because I don't have it in my family. I don't have it in extended families. And so I just feel that it's more. That's why when I heard about that you're an advocate for autism, I was excited to interview. You're my second interview. And I said, oh, I've got to have her on because I want to share with our listeners everything there is that beyond the book, that backstory. I hate to use backstory because it's kind of a cliche, but beyond the book of why we write what we write and why we do what we do. And I have a question for you in regards to Down syndrome, because it appears that two of your grandkids had heart issues. Is that the most common of the birth defects that they have?
Yes, it is. It's very common for a child with Down syndrome to have a hole in their heart or have some kind of heart defect. And like I said, so you're getting this diagnosis when your child's born. In our case, we didn't know ahead of time. In the case of my nephew, it was the same way. My brother did not know. And so it's kind of like a fire hose to the face. You find out, and all this information is coming at you, and you just don't know what to expect or to anticipate what kind of health issues. And I think they vary just like any typical child. They can be very healthy to where they have a lot of health issues. I've seen children with Down syndrome who are born under 5 pounds, which is typical, and they come with a lot of health issues. The parents are very concerned and nervous. It just so happened that our Bronxy weighed about 8 pounds. He was a big boy, and he just didn't seem to come with those issues. But I think it's just like anything. There's a higher percentage. Children with Down syndrome have a higher percentage of getting childhood leukemia. There's several things that come along with that. And so researching and just knowing, is a great asset. And also just enjoying them, because I always say children with Down syndrome, their emotions are like everybody else's, but they're on steroids. When they're really happy, they're really happy. When they're really sad, they're really sad. And it's actually so fun.
God.
And we get such a kick out of it. We just used to, even before Bronxy was born, my grandson, my family, whenever we would do something, we'd always invite Beckham along. He's my nephew with Down syndrome, just because he was fun. And my grandkids loved him. And they'd say, hey, can we invite Beckham? And I'd say, yeah, let's invite Beckham to come with us. So it was just fun.
I think that's so special that you have more than one Down syndrome child in your family, so they don't feel like they're the only ones. They're not different in your family. They all get together, and I'm sure all 13 of your grandkids see each other as their cousins, and there's no, this one has this or this one has that. You never want to make them feel that way. We don't want to be in portrait. We want to be in horizontal on your phone. So you're videotaping on your phone. It looks like maybe you have that locked, that when you turn your phone, it won't turn with you. Yes.
Let's see. What does it look like now? Is it telling you that again still?
As a grandmother to a silly and wonderful autistic child, how has that relationship influenced the way you think about children's book as a writer? I think that's an obvious question, author to author, but I would like you to share that with our audience.
Well, I think that the most important thing is just thinking everything in life is full of fun. I mean, life is to be embraced and fun. And I think you recognize, as I do as a grandmother, everything our kids, we get to look at it from a different lens. We're not parenting, so we get to have that different lens. We get to look at everything they do as being so much fun. And so even though maybe my little Bronxy with Down syndrome, maybe he is hard or difficult for his own parents, but to me, I think he's funny. He does a lot of things that crack me up. As in all of my grandkids, I just get to see them from a different lens. I get to sit back and enjoy the ride. Like other people, or as a parent, you're so busy. You're so right in the middle of raising those children. Whereas with me, I get to sit back and I get to just watch it all play out. And it's a lot of fun.
I agree. I have a couple of silly grandkids too. And even if you're having a tough day and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted, they're coming over, they're going to spend the night. How am I going to find the energy to do that? And it's almost like it's an adrenaline. I love it because they put that joy in our heart. If you didn't have such a great day or something happened, it's like you forget about it. I don't know what it is. It is hard to explain. It just happens. It just happens naturally. And I love that. But your books, I took a peek this morning at the Bronx book, children's book, Adventures of Bronx. And I love the illustrations. The illustrations are beautiful. Are your books illustrated by different illustrators?
Yes, I have 3 different illustrators. And I think, as we all know, as an indie author, it's a learning curve. And I'll tell you what, that first book, Bronx, I wanted it out for Down Syndrome Awareness Month. And I didn't even know where to start. I thought, where do you even start to write a book? I knew how I wanted it written, and I knew what I wanted the illustrations to look like. But I have a daughter-in-law that does freelance web design and things like that. And she said, you need to look on Fiverr. And so that's what I did. And I went through the difference with some of my books. The Down syndrome book is a serious book, more of a serious book, but I wanted the pictures of Bronx to look as a child with Down syndrome. I wanted the illustrator to capture the beauty of Down syndrome. I didn't want it to look strange or different, and I felt like watercolor was a beautiful way to do it. And his name is Doug Phillip, and he did a fantastic job. It was his first time as an illustrator as well. So we had a few issues that we had to resolve that I didn't know about, he didn't know about. And so we didn't get it out until the very last day of the month. We got it out, but it was the last day of the month. So it was a little bit of a tight squeeze. And then the Gator Gray book and Noodles book, I used Mark Belita. He is wonderful. And he's done both of my books. And, I just trust him. I just trust what he'll do. He'll capture it. And he does. He did a great job. I sent him my manuscripts. I sent pictures on the Gator Gray book. It's about my grandson, one of my grandsons who didn't walk until he was about 18 months old. And he was a big kid. And my daughter's tiny. And she's trying to lug him around places. And so all the things in the book that I wrote about Gator Gray are absolutely true. He did grab the rugs. He did eat bugs. He did, there were so many things, and it was so funny. And I sent pictures of what I wanted them to look like, and Mark just nailed it. He did such a good job. So that when the Noodles book, I sent him the manuscript and said, what do you think? What are your ideas for a character? He came up with the character for the Noodles book, and I loved her. He did a great job with her. I came up with that idea for the Noodles book because I was sitting in my family room, and I have a almost 3-year-old granddaughter that lives with me right now. They live with us, the family. They're getting ready to move, but she is hysterical. Her personality is so big. And she came walking in and she'd eaten noodles, and she had them in her hair. She had them in her nose. She had them in her diaper. She had them everywhere. And I looked at her and I said, noodles everywhere. And my daughter-in-law said, hey, that sounds like a great book. And it just kind of morphed into that. All of my grandkids love noodles. If you're as a grandma, you probably already know that yourself. They just love noodles. I don't know what it is about them, but they get them everywhere. And it just sounded like a great idea. And it was fun and it was whimsical, and I just loved the idea. So he did a fantastic job with that. I did use a different illustrator for the Missy Moo series. It's going to be a series. There's another book coming out, a Christmas one, because I had something very specific. And at that point, I was ready to advocate more for myself and to say specifically what I wanted her to look like. I wanted her to be a very feminine cow. I wanted her to dance. My granddaughter loves to dance. I wanted her to dance everywhere she went. I wanted her to have some sass and some confidence. And it was Shahid. He did a fantastic job. He hit it right on. And he would come up with the illustrations every 3 or 4 months, and we'd take a look at them. And if I needed things changed, he was very willing to change things. And it turned out exactly how I had envisioned it. I have a plushie coming out of Missy Moo, and she cracks me up. She is so much fun. So that was a fun book. That was a really fun book.
You're right about illustrators, that when you trust them, you feel like, what else can I write? Let me start another story because I'm finishing this one up and I'm ready to do another one. When you trust, let's share with our audience. When you trust an illustrator, you stick with them, and I don't know what it is about the manuscript. You give them a manuscript. I've got a couple of them too, that you give them a manuscript, and it's like, you give them a little bits and pieces of what you're looking for and your idea. And it's like, you think that it's not enough, but when you see it and then it comes to life with color, it's like, How in the world did they know? It's almost like there's a connection between the brains and they see in your head what exactly you envisioned. And when I started as a brand new author, I don't know, you said about a year is all that you've been a self published author. How long have you been, Heidi, of self published?
It's been about a
Oh my
year.
gosh.
I guess I went crazy
No,
in my
I
50s.
did the same thing, Heidi. I illustrated. I have 15 books 3.5 years later. How in the heck did that happen? So
That's
it's like
awesome.
you just go from one to another. And when you have three illustrators that you connect that well with, it's like, oh, I got to write another book. I got to write another book. When I started, I had 3 or 4 different manuscripts, and I found a great Daria Shamalina. Same thing. I mean, I feel like I hear a lot of stories on Facebook in groups looking for illustrators, and they're kind of a disaster because you think, it's not that good. That's not what I was thinking. Even though I always get a sample, I don't know about you. I'll pay
Mhm.
$100 to get a sample or 200, whatever the price minimal to get a sample. But when you find that illustrator, it's like one of your grandkids, your kids. Oh my gosh, I got to hold on to them because I have another book idea, or I have this, or I have that. I love Missy Moo. You are so blessed to find that illustrator. Is not only all your books are funny and heartfelt, but Missy Moo, when I was in when I was starting out, I would have never thought about writing a book about farting.
Right? I know. I never, and it's so funny because I put a dedication in each of them, and it's dedicated to my granddaughter Oakley, who loves to dance, and I always have to preface it. She doesn't fart. I promise. But I just wanted to base it off that character because she loves to dance. She dances everywhere she
My
goes. And I
gosh.
thought, well, that's perfect,
My daughter was the same way. She walked on her tiptoes until when she first started walking. And then we put her in dance. She danced through high school. Our granddaughter now, Amelia, the series Amelia Ophelia books, why I wrote that, because of John's camping. You write all your books about John. And so I had to come up with one for her. I really need to do one about dancing because we just went to her, I think it's called a summer recital, and she's
Oh, how
doing
fun.
solos. I mean, the dancing and that free spirit that they have and the art creative side behind them, it just, I don't know, there's something about watching your grandkids blossom from babies to little people. Our grandson is now 13 and our granddaughter is 11, and I wish I had them back like your young grandkids, but I would never give up the years that we have with them because you see them grow and we just want to cherish those times. And I don't know about you, Heidi, but that's why I started writing as well, because your grandkids give you so many ideas to write about.
Yeah.
And whether it's funny, whether it's camping, John came over one day when I was watching him as a baby. He was 4.5. And he said, Lolo, I caught my first fish. I saw a squirrel run up a tree. And it's like, oh my gosh, I have to bottle that. I have to, get that look and that excitement and that moment in a book and hopefully share it. And it has been a great series as well. But when I looked up your books, I have seen them all on social media, but the humor behind the Missy Moo, that's going to be a great series. Do you have another book coming out in that series?
I do. It's called Merry Christmas, Missy Moo. And it's so cute.
My
She
gosh.
falls because she needs mittens. She can't stay on the ice. And we have a thing where all the sheep have donated to the cause of making her some mittens and and now they're all sleeping. So we did some things like that to tie in the, funny puns with it. I think it'll be really cute. And I love, really, my dream has been to have pajamas because I feel like pajamas and books go
Oh my
together.
gosh, that's
So I've
brilliant.
designed some pajamas, and I'm hoping that they turn out with Missy Moo and Gator Gray. And we have plushies for all three of the books, and we are going to try the pajamas and see how they do. We just, you got to give
Oh
it
my
you got to take a
gosh,
risk, right?
that it well beyond the book. That's the whole conversation of that I want to share your stories and get broaden. I don't know about you. Social media is great to a certain point, but the reason why I started a podcast and why I want to invite my social media friends is because I feel like we need a broader reach and share
Yes.
with us what's beyond that book. And that is brilliant, Heidi. That is brilliant. That should take off. I would think with the pajamas, and what cute pajamas would Missy Moo make? And even Gator Gray, I think that is great. Now, when you're writing a book, you got to think about those characters on pajamas. Every single book
I
you have,
know.
you got to make pajamas with them, because what a great Christmas gift, a birthday gift, a baby shower gift. They get a signed book with pajamas, or a onesie.
Yeah.
That is brilliant. That is
Well,
brilliant.
because don't you love bedtime reading? I love
Yes,
reading. I
yes,
loved reading to my kids at bedtime. The best time of the night, all the snuggles and the books and yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Can you
Sure.
share a special moment or memory where a book had a strong positive impact on your grandchildren or inspired you as an author? Well, we've talked a lot about being inspired by an author, but the positive impact on your grandchildren. How do your grandkids share with us how they receive those books? My granddaughter loves to see she's in an Amelia Ophelia book, and she's so proud of that. Share with us about your grandkids and they saw that book for the first time that you wrote about them.
Well, I think I have read it at all my grandkids' preschools or their, schools at the library. And I remember my grandson Bronson, my daughter called me and she FaceTimed me and she said, Bronson wants to talk to you. And he said, Gammy, I saw your book in our library today. And I said, that's my cousin and that's my Gammy that wrote
Oh
that
my,
book. And he was so excited.
oh,
And I was just like, and then he said, Gammy, will you write a book about me? And I thought, absolutely. 13 of them. I'm going to get going
yes,
on that.
yes, absolutely. I saw on your website that you have a picture up at the top. Is that an older granddaughter reading to the younger grandkids? Or is that it's a
Trying to think which one.
child on a couch? She's got blonde hair and
I think that would be my daughter,
oh my
and she
gosh.
is reading. Has she got her three little
Yes.
boys
Oh my
there?
gosh, she looks so
Yes,
young. She's
she
adorable.
does. She's the Gator Gray mom,
Oh,
and that little boy is huge, and she's like
she
tiny, and
looks
she's trying to hold him. But yeah, that was the Gator Gray book, and they just were mesmerized with it because she would say, things like, and he ate the bugs, and they would be like, yeah, they would giggle and think, yes, he did.
fun that brings back the memory of that moment. That's what is so special about writing these books, that they can go back again and again and read them and say, I remember when they're 16 or 15 years old, and I remember eating those bugs, and oh my God, they tasted horrible. What was I thinking?
Exactly. There were those little roly polies.
Yeah.
He would just corner them, and my daughter would be racing like in slow motion, trying to grab him. We were like, well, are you starving him, or protein's good. A little
Yeah.
extra protein
Yeah.
there, I guess.
Hopefully he didn't catch anything from any of them.
No.
Oh, that's hilarious. What advice, Heidi, would you give to other grandparents, parents, or inspiring authors who want to create stories that support emotional growth, communication for autistic children? Is there something special that you can give them advice that they need to know that maybe you learned later on, or you just automatically, because you have three grandkids or family members that have Down syndrome? Is it for people who don't, like myself, who don't know anything about Down syndrome? What do they need to know? Do they need to know something special to write a story about Down syndrome? Before you answer that question, I always do my research. If I'm writing about beekeeping, writing about ocean conservation, obviously, I think the most obvious answer would be research. But what did you need to find out or learn along the way as a self published author?
Well, I think the most important thing was just to learn. I think it is Down syndrome is like autism or, ADHD or all kinds of all kinds of diagnoses. And I think that they range so drastically. So in the Down syndrome community, we would say high functioning. So we would say a child was more high functioning. Bronxy happens to be very, very high functioning. He will probably read. He's already doing letters and numbers, and he goes to school, and he's in summer school right now. He's lucky because he has a life skills class, and he has one aide that just works with him specifically, and she is a doll. We love her. I think that, yeah, just a lot of research, and to remember that each child goes at their own pace. We can do all the research in the world, but we have to understand they're just like a typical child. Some will read before others. Some will hold jobs. With Down syndrome specifically, some children will hold jobs. I see a lot of people with Down syndrome holding jobs and doing a great job and feeling like they're part of the community and they have a lot to contribute. There are some children, I know specifically a little girl that can't swallow. She's got some other issues along with her Down syndrome. She has a feeding tube. And so there's such a range. And I think people just need to be aware that they go at their own pace, and it's okay. It is definitely okay. An interesting personal situation with that I don't generally talk about on my page is in 2019 when Bronx was born. 2 weeks after that, I had two daughters that were pregnant. And 2 weeks after Bronxy was born, we lost our grandson. He was a stillbirth. And I remember it was very, very hard on my daughter. It was hard on all of us. I think we still grieve to this day. It has been one of the hardest things I think I've ever faced. He was full term and it was very difficult. And my daughter came from a distance, it's about 6 hours away with Bronxy to the funeral. And my daughter, who had just lost our baby, Brooks, held him for the first time and said she could just feel the light and she could feel the peace. And it brought her so much peace. And it was and she said it was almost, and I know, not everybody thinks Down syndrome is a blessing. We do. We love it. We embrace it. We think it's a blessing, but it was a blessing to my daughter that had lost her child because Bronxy had different milestones than a typical child would have. So he wasn't going to walk when a typical child, he was almost 2 before he walked. He wasn't going to speak until he was probably 3.5 or 4. He was going to have completely different milestones. So it was much easier for for my daughter who had lost our baby, Brooks, to see those so that she wasn't constantly thinking that would be what Brooks would be doing. That would be what Brooks would be doing. Bronxy has blessed our lives wow. Sorry.
No, I'm holding back tears of the story. I can't even imagine going back to your daughter losing a baby at full term. And I feel what you're feeling right now.
It was hard. And so when I look at the absolute light that Bronx has brought into our lives, it's incredible. It's incredible. And if I could yell it to the world, I would yell it to the world because, there is that stigma with children with Down syndrome. And while he is salty, he loves his French fries and he loves pizza and ice cream. And sometimes he gets mad at me. He doesn't get it.
I love
He has
that.
some of the best
Oh,
and funniest dance moves in the whole world. And when he wraps his arms around you and says, I love you, Gammy, it is the feeling. And the funniest thing, one of his favorite people is his Aunt Maddie. And she is my daughter that lost, our little Brooks. He loves his Aunt Maddie so much. So he has brought some joy and some light that we really needed at that time.
oh,
And I think people need to know that they have a light. They're pretty amazing kids.
yes.
They just are.
I would love to see his dance moves. I don't know if your daughter would ever want you to put it on social media,
She is
but
absolutely okay with
what a
that.
great video clip that I would love to see them or even just FaceTime me to say hi. When I go to farmers markets, that's my light. That's my energy for doing what I do. I love the children and all their questions and their kind hearts. I had one little girl say, I wrote a story. Can I bring it to you and you read it and tell me what you think of it? And it's like, oh my gosh, she thinks that much about my writing and my books. She has my books. And I feel like I've given her that light to move on. I said, never stop writing. Families. I spoke with Harley Mansky yesterday, and we talk all the time about who we meet at farmers markets and how that just touches our life so much. And the children, it's all about the kids. And, I can't tell you, Heidi, for being my second episode, this has touched my heart so much. I never
Uh-huh.
imagined the stories that you have shared with me, and I feel honored that you shared them. And now it'll be out in public, but I so appreciate, I always say people don't appreciate the little things. And I so appreciate your time and sharing, because we're sharing personal life experiences like what you said you haven't shared, but that touches people and helps us understand better. If you didn't know anything about autistic kids or Down syndrome, my whole point of why I wanted to start a podcast, because what a beautiful stories behind the books. And I just love it.
You are amazing to do this. I'm
Oh,
so
thank
excited.
you.
I'm
I
so
can't
excited.
believe I told my husband a week ago I was going to start a podcast. And he said, Are you sure you want to do that? And I said, I feel like
I know we're so
I know.
busy.
I feel like there's got to be more. I want to spread as far as we can go into other countries, into other states. We only see a very small piece of each other on social media. My daughter tells me, Mom, you just need some friends, because she thinks all I do is work. And I said, Well, Courtney, I do have a lot of friends. You just don't see them every day. And so they have a lot of friends
We
and a
are
lot.
kind of a close knit, aren't we? A close knit community
Oh
of
my
writers.
gosh.
I agree.
And now that we see each other face to face, I feel like we're even closer. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love your new book. I've already listened
Oh, you
to it.
did. Secrets of
Yes,
Hawthorne
I'm
Manor.
going to do a review on it. I love Audible because I can listen to it on my way to work, and it is so
Oh,
fun.
I'm glad you love it. So, Secrets of Hawthorne Manor,
Yep.
that's my
Yep.
latest book. Harley and I talked yesterday. I asked her, What is your favorite book that you've illustrated? And she goes, It's like picking a favorite child. You can't. And I said, It's because it's the most recent, you're the closest. It's the immediate connection right now. We love them all. We love all of our children, right? All of our children, our
Yep.
grandchildren,
They're our
our books.
babies. We put our heart and soul into it, didn't we?
We do. We do. Well, Heidi, share with our audience where they can find you, where they can follow you, and grab a copy of your wonderful, wonderful books. I love them all.
You bet. You can go. They're all on Amazon. I do have about 8 coloring books out right now too, because they're so much fun to put
Yes.
together. I have some gator ones to go with the gator gray and some things like that. But They can go to Amazon, and I have a web page, and I just sent out my first newsletter. I figured it out. I sent out my newsletter. I'm so excited. But they can find me at www.mrs- and this is my favorite part, mrs-bs-books.com. I always think that's so funny, but we had to, there was another I guess, domain taken by, so we had to do the dashes and then the BS, but we, hey,
It's
it
fun.
works. We laugh. Everything's funny. So
It is. Well, I have had so much fun talking to you and getting to know you, Heidi. I feel like we could come together one day and have coffee and sit down. One day, I want to meet up with all my social media and author friends. I would love to do that.
same, we need to have a big
Yeah,
party.
yes, absolutely. Well, again, go on Amazon, find Heidi Brooks or search Heidi Brooks. You'll find all of her books on there, and check her out on her website, follow her on social media. And this is JoAnn Dickinson, Beyond the Book, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, JoAnn. This was so much
Thank
fun.
you, Heidi, for your time.